There's a story behind every place's name. In Washington state, the famous Ape Canyon can be found, owing its moniker to one of the most famous Bigfoot attacks of all time. It was on a summer night in July 1924 when a small cabin, housing a group of miners, came under attack by a gang of wild ape men. The 5 miners, all of whom survived the incident and seemed convinced of its facts, were asleep when the attack started. Seemingly out of nowhere, the cabin they had hand-built began being hit by huge stones that were being thrown by the group called Mountain Devils on all sides. The men began to shoot at the monsters, and the attacks would cease, only to start up again mere minutes later. At one point, one of the supposed Sasquatches reached into the cabin through a hole in the construction and took hold of an axe, but was stymied before he could pull it out of the building. The siege continued until daybreak, when the men finally inched their way out of the cabin. One of the men, Fred Beck, saw one of the Bigfoot creatures standing in the distance at the edge of what is now known as Ape Canyon. Beck fired at the creature, and supposedly he watched it tumble into the gorge. Sasquatch sightings did not cease after that disturbing encounter in 1924. In 1963, a highly experienced skier by the name of Jim Carter went missing in the area. A local paper called the Longview Times had this to say: "Carter's complete disappearance is an unsolved mystery to this day," declared Bob Lee, a well-known Portland mountaineer. "Dr. Otto Trott, Lee Stark, and I finally came to the conclusion that the apes got him," said Lee seriously. On the way down the mountain, he left the other climbers at a landmark called Dog's Head, at the 8,000-foot level. He told them he would ski around to the left and take a picture of the group as they skied down to Timberline. That was the last anyone saw of Carter. The next morning, searchers found a discarded film box at the point where he had taken a picture. From here, Carter evidently took off down the mountain, a wild, death-defying dash, taking chances that no skier of his caliber would take, unless something was terribly wrong, or he was being pursued. He jumped over 2 or 3 large crevices, and evidently he was going like the devil. When Carter's tracks reached the precipitous sides of Ape Canyon, the searchers were amazed to see that Carter had been in such a hurry that he went right down the steep canyon walls. But they did not find him at the bottom. We combed the canyon, one end to the other, for 5 days. Sometimes there were as many as 75 people in the search party. After 2 weeks, the search was called off. Besides the fearsome fauna, the area's other claim to fame is the explosion of the nearby Mount St. Helens in 1980. It was the most significant volcanic eruption to occur in the U.S. in over 65 years. Reportedly, following the eruption, several Sasquatch corpses were sighted, only to be carried off in helicopters by mysterious government individuals.